Where even am I right now? What the heck? I don't even know where I am. Where the heck even am I right now? What is even going on? And welcome back to Devlog. In the last part I worked on my game, and in this part I work on my game. The first thing I did is finish the Pep-Pel splash screen. This is what shows up when you first boot up the game, not the forced Unity one where you have to see that the game is made in Unity, but the other one where you can see that I made the game. This originally was not animated and also didn't have the full graphics. You may have been able to tell that in previous devlogs, the graphics upon scrolling down was just a sofa floating in the middle of the screen. This was because it was wholly unfinished, and now I have drawn the sprite for this being Pep-Pel playing with her funny little controller. So now, when booting up the game, you can see the full graphics of the splash screen, which is now animated with different texts. It then scrolls down, you can see a funny little picture of Pep-Pel that I drew, and then audio is played, and then it lands on the opening title screen, at which point you can play the game more. I'm very proud of how this looks. It is a pretty easy drawing. I basically just posed Pep-Pel in a way that looked similar to this and then traced over her and then drew the picture of her on the sofa playing the videos game, but I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I'm a huge fan of games that have some audio cue and a funny little graphic that says, hey, you should use a controller for this game. So having that actually be finished and look nice, I think really adds a lot to the game, and I'm just overall pretty happy with how it looks. Of course, you can't hear the actual dialogue for this because you're on YouTube and I'm overshadowing the audio for the game. Ha! Sucker! The next thing I added was the visual for the Desert Desert Tail. This was the only thing left to add for the Desert Desert, besides from fixing a bunch of bugs and visual errors. But there was the only thing left to add for the Desert Desert. In case you have forgotten, my game is about collecting weird treasured little tail things. What are these things? Well, I'm glad you asked. I haven't actually decided what they are. But they're weird little MacGuffins that Pep-Pel picks up with her grubby little fingers. I finished drawing the Desert Desert version of this, so now I have the Trash Trail version, and I have the Desert Desert. The Trash Trail version is a weird little wooden tail with a poisonous, goopy little gem on the end that is corrupting and making the tail look all gross. The Desert Desert tail is a lollipop stick that is thin, which is the actual tail. It could be the thin little monkey tail, mayhaps. And then it has a big gumball on top of it. Basically, it's a tail with the visual for the level. I'm a big fan of how this looks. It was pretty easy to draw. It was just a pink blob on a stick. The next thing I did was fix major bugs in the level. There were so many. A lot of these were just instances at which I had updated maybe a visual in the level and not updated the hitbox, or errors in the climbing mechanic, but a lot of these were surprisingly just issues with the game's visuals, specifically the Desert Desert visuals, which was surprising to me because when creating the Trash Trail, generally the visuals for that level were pretty good. Once I had added them, I didn't have to go in and fix a whole lot of issues with the visuals, but I had to fix a lot of issues with the physics and hitboxes of the Trash Trail. I still am. That level maybe is my least favorite because of how janky it is. But in the Desert Desert, there was very few actual issues that I really had to fix in the level that weren't visual. A lot of the hitboxes were surprisingly easy to navigate, and there wasn't really much issue with them. In fact, the main issues for the Desert Desert mainly came from that one section of the level that was a big waffle, which is good because I added that section of the level as a joke, but it's also bad because now there's a section of the level that kind of sucks, and I don't want to remove it because it's funny to me. But I think the reason this level was so easy to test for and didn't have as many glaring bugs as the Trash Trail is partly because I'm more experienced in creating the levels for Pep-Pel now, so I can really know what is and is not good collision and what will and will not work, things like this, but also because it's a big block of sand and the hitboxes are a lot easier to navigate than the Trash Trail, which is a bunch of random vines and trees and rocks and ropes, which inherently was a little more complicated to make hitboxes for, while the desert is just a bunch of sand trails and rocks, and that doesn't have as much issues in their creation than the actual design of the trash trail did. What I'm getting at is that once again, the trash trail has cemented itself as the most obnoxious and poorly chosen first levels for me to have actually created. Finally, I had more level testing. This was pretty simple. I just run through the level a bunch and then I see what happens and I see what can be fixed. This is very simple. I play through the level. All I do is I have the game at a very small resolution in one corner of my screen. I run through the level, and then whenever I get to an issue, I pause the game, I go over to Unity, and I fix whatever the issue is. This is very good for time management because I can just very quickly fix an error while still being in game, and also is good because errors get fixed. I find this process of the game development design process both satisfying and very bothersome for the same reasons. It's satisfying because I get to fix bugs in my game, and usually they're pretty simple things where it's just some collision doesn't really match up with visuals, or some jumps are weirdly difficult unless you have very precise timing, so I can fix those. But it is also a little bit bothersome because I can go through levels and really be emotionally hardened by the fact that it kind of sucks. I think it is important to remember when playing through my own levels that it is still a work in progress, and if the levels suck, I can just make them not suck, which is pretty great. I used to get very bothered whenever I would test my game and feel like it was very boring or uninspired or just not fun to play, but now through testing it and making corrections to parts and levels where I felt were more boring or not fun to play, I now find the game a lot more satisfying and a lot more fun. What I'm getting at is it's good to play your own game and think it's a pile of worthless garbage. One example of this is during testing, there was one section of the trash trail level that I consistently did not enjoy playing. I felt like it was really boring, not very fun, difficult in a way that wasn't very engaging for the player and just required weird timing. And what I did for this to fix this error in this one level design is I just completely removed that section and made a new different section in the trash trail, and now because of that I find the entire level a lot more engaging because there isn't this awkward middle section that's not fun for the player and not fun for me. Anyway, that's it for devlog. The game is now in its state where it's an actual playable demo. All the options are enabled. The players can edit any option they want. They can play it in any way they want, which means that it's now workable and at a state where I would feel comfortable releasing it as a demo. It has 2 playable levels that are completely finished. These levels don't have any glaring issues in them, and the only thing that is remaining is an actual tutorial, because I maybe neglected the fact that players may not know what the button inputs do in Pep-Pel. For example, having to hold the right trigger to run is pretty needed for the gameplay, and the fact that I don't tell the player that at any point is a little bit of an issue. So, at this current point, I would release a demo, but there isn't a tutorial, and I don't want a bunch of people playing the game and then getting a bad impression because they don't know what the buttons do. So the current Pep-Pel plan is to finish a tutorial level, which will be hopefully the shortest level so far because it doesn't require a whole lot of detail, it doesn't require its own mechanic, it doesn't require a lot of level length. It's mostly teaching the player a list of different things of how the game works. Oops! These being walking, running, jumping, potions, enemy hazards, armor, metal objects, gems, and climbing. And once this is done, the public demo on Steam, itch.io, whatever, can be released, which I'm pretty excited for. You can tell by the tone of my voice, I am beside myself.